Hi everyone, welcome back. Here's my latest haul from CD Japan. Let's get to unwrapping these. The first one is a makeup brush shampoo from Bisyodo. It's called Fude Bijin Brush Beauty. It's a pretty red-brown color. And it's 120 millimeters, so it's a good amount in the bottle itself, and it's got a good weight to it. I'm excited to try it out. This has been on my wish list for a while, but last time when I went to buy it, there was only one left and then someone bought it before me, so I had to wait a couple weeks for them to restock it, and now they have about 8 left at the time of making this video. Please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you enjoy my content. I thought it was upside down, but it's not. Here's the most exciting part. The brushes! This is the CD Japan card that all the brush orders come with, a bit of the history, how to properly care for cosmetic brushes, and the warranty. The brush I'm most excited for is the Eihodo brush with the peony handle. I've been wanting this peony handle for like a year, but then the shortness, the small handle always deterred me, so I never went out of my way to buy it. But then last time I ordered the round P1 with the small handle, and I was like, I really just want the peony, so here we are. This one is the P2. Let me open it with scissors. That'll be faster. The Makie is vibrant and beautiful. I'll just take them all out of the bubble wrap first before I take them out of the plastic. So this one is the GP-1 with the Sakura Makie. This one shares the same design as the Chikuhodo JR Hiroshima Station highlight brush. I'm going to do all the Eihodo brushes first. How do I open this one? This is the same Makie design as MK-2. Here's the head. Okay. This one is the Houkodou GC-2, a flat cheek brush. Okay, it's time to unwrap them all. It's plastic. Is the GP1, or no, this is the P1. The ferrule is actually longer than the handle, which I'm not a fan of. I want the handle to be longer than the ferrule. The orange P1 is sold out now, but you can still order the same head from the WP series. But I love the round head and the shape in general based on the P1 that I bought previously. I love the peony Makie so much, I just had to get it. Gorgeous peony design with a flat head. The hairs are really long at 55 millimeters. So these are both 55 millimeters. Okay, this is the GP1, also flat head. Here's the handle design. It's silky, but it's airy too. Last is the Houkodou GC-2. This one also has a pinched flat head. This is how they look brand new fresh out of the package. I will wash them and show you them afterwards. This is how they look post-wash. The tape is for privacy. All of the gray squirrel brushes have white hairs in them, something I haven't really seen in gray squirrel hair before. The only other two I've come across are the Chikuhodo B002 and a Chin P8 dupe. They also all have curly hair tips and quite a bit of wavy hairs, which are atypical as well. I guess the current trend for Eihodo gray squirrel brushes is to have white hairs mixed in, curly tips, and wavy bodies. The brush with the straightest hairs are from my previous haul, the P1 with the short handle. This one has the straightest hairs. Keep in mind hair softness varies, which means my brushes might either be softer or less soft than yours. These brushes are not as silky soft or thin as, say, the Koyudo Gray Squirrel brushes and Chikuhodo Z series brushes from 2014 and 2015, but they're still soft. They're drier than the older gray squirrel hair too. The bristles are thicker, and the CDJapan Eihodo description for the P1 states that they use extra dense bristles. They all apply loose setting powder smoothly and provide a polished finish. I consider the Makie brushes here to be more for collecting purposes, particularly for the Makie designs. The exception is the short handle P1 I'll be using as a point of comparison, but that's not part of this haul. This is the orange P1 with the longer Sakura Makie handle. This has a round ferrule, head, and hair length of 55 millimeters. The Makie is identical to the Chikuhodo MK-2 Makie, but this one gets covered by the long ferrule. Here's the head comparison with the MK2 on the right. MK2's been laid flat. It's oval and not round. Top. Here it is compared with the MK2 on the left and the Z1 on the right. It's a large powder brush that makes the Chikuhodo Z1 look small in comparison. Here's the short handle P1 on the left, the long handle P1 in the middle, and the Z1 on the right. The top center is ever so slightly tapered like the short handle P1. The ferrule is the same length as the short P1. I wanted the longer handle one so that I could hold it by the handle instead of the ferrule, but the ferrule is so long that I still have to hold it by that part. The handle is long enough where you can hold it by the handle, but it's still shorter than the ferrule, so I end up holding it by the ferrule anyway. Compared to the short handle P1, the long handle P1 has a larger head. They're actually almost completely different brushes, which is surprising. The bundling is quite different. The long handle is a lot more loosely packed, while the short handle one has a tighter head. This means the long handle one fluffs out or expands a lot more and covers a larger surface area due to the larger head. Short handle one is on the right. Even though the long handle one has a larger head, it is not denser nor does it have higher resistance. Actually, the short handle one is denser since it's more tightly bundled, and I think the resistance is a tad higher. The short handle one has a thicker body, which suits my preferences more for swirling on the face. The low handle one has low to medium resistance, while the short handle one is more on the medium side when being swirled on the face. Here's the density amount for the long handle P1 compared to the other P1. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, so orange long handle P1 is on the left, short Sakura P1 is on the right. long handle one. The hairs on the short handle one are also softer. Here's a handle length comparison. So the long one is only a little bit longer than the short one. The extra long ferrule that gets in the way. Here's the Makie comparison. I definitely prefer the Makie on the right more. I'm generally not a fan of airy brushes, so I prefer the short handle head over the long handle head. The density level and size is dependent upon the bundling since Fude are handmade, which means whichever P1 you end up buying will either be like one of these or different altogether. It's Fude lottery. The P2 is a paddle-shaped finishing brush with a pinched ferrule. It also comes in their WP line. The handle is extremely short with a pink peony Makie design with slight silver iridescence. I know people are going to be curious, so here's the Peony Makie compared with the pale Sakura Makie. The Sakura one is way more iridescent. They're both exquisite designs and I don't think you can go wrong with either. The pink color of the peonies is vivid unlike the pale colors of the Sakura Makie. While the Sakura on the short handle P1 have a dazzling and radiant glow since the iridescence is the focus, the pink color on the peony seem to be the focus on this brush. The Peony Makie has darker green leaves. The leaves are shaped differently between the two, with the peony one having jagged edges and prominent gold veining. Both designs are beautiful, and I really wish they came out with long handle versions of these designs. Putting them on black lacquered handles like the Chikuhodo Z and MK series would have been perfect. They would sell like hotcakes. The ferrule is a lot longer than the handle, and it's the easiest to use when held by the ferrule. Nope. Way too awkward to hold by the handle. Holding it by the ferrule is the best. The long ferrule and short handle ratio was the reason why I didn't bite the bullet and buy these for years, but I fell in love with the Peony Makie at first sight and recently thought about it again. Unfortunately, for round-shaped lovers like me, the peony design only comes with this flat paddle shape with a hair length of 55mm. It's a finishing brush. Both the P2 and P1 here have hair lengths of 55mm and they're considered finishing brushes at that length. The ferrule is less wide than the head. The head widens a lot at the top like the Houkodou S102 and 2015 Wayne Goss Holiday brush. I don't fancy wide flat paddle brushes, so my opinion is obviously going to be biased for this brush. I will say that I think it's denser than both the aforementioned brushes. I remember those two being on the airier side because there wasn't much hair in them, or those were finer, which equates to thinner heads overall. These hairs are on the thicker side, which makes the head feel denser and fluffier. This one is on the medium to dense side. The bundling is pretty even, which I think I lucked out on since the friend who got the Sakura Makie handle version of this brush got one with uneven bundling. So this is how much hair it has when I squeeze it. See the density. It has medium resistance. This applies powder quick and easily since it's so wide. It covers a lot of surface area at once. It does feel pleasant swept across the face, and I do appreciate that it can cover a lot of surface area, but I prefer the round P1 since I'm partial to round shapes. Give me a flat paddle brush with a wide head and a round brush, and more often than not, I would choose a round brush. Keep in mind that skin types play a role in this. As someone with combination skin who used to be on the oily side, round brushes would not affect my skin during application. As my skin became drier over the years, I began to see some dry parts, and round shapes will make those areas flake. I don't mind since my skin has more dry patches than flakes. So flat shapes are more suitable for people with dry skin because you sweep in one direction and don't buff. The sweeping and gliding doesn't move the skin and flakes as much. Anyway, if you love flat shapes or if you have dry skin, then this would probably be up your alley. Everyone's different, so try it out if it interests you. The GP-1 is a paddle-shaped powder brush with a pinched oval ferrule. The Makie design is reminiscent of the 2015 Beautylicious Chikuhodo collaboration and the Chikuhodo 2016 JR Hiroshima Station retractable highlight brush. They're both very similar and they both have a little bit of iridescence on them. I think the retractable brush has more though. Compared to the other two Eihodo Makie brushes I showed earlier, the GP1 has the least amount of iridescence compared to the P1 and the P2. I think the ferrule and handle ratio on this are way better than the Makie brushes with the short handles and extra long ferrules. Ferrule and handle ratio comparison. This one I hold by the ferrule as well, but it's not as awkward when I hold it by the handle compared to the shorter handle ones. It has a hair length of 50 millimeters. It also widens at the top just like the P2. Hair density. Here I'm comparing the hair density with the P2 on the right. The P2 is definitely denser. The GP1 is a smaller powder brush overall, and I think it's more suitable for powder, while the P2 is more for finishing. It is a medium-sized powder brush with a versatile size which can also be utilized for bronzer and blush if you like blush placement in a large surface area. I'm a fan of the size. I don't like these gray Squirrel brushes with baked Milani blushes as it doesn't deposit much pigment, but it pairs nicely with soft matte formulas. I'm referring to the old Milani baked formulas, not the newer ones that are really powdery and super metallic. The ferrule width or thickness is just right. I don't think it's too thin for my liking. The density and resistance are on the medium side. The con is that the bundling is uneven, and I wish they paid more attention to making it. The closest brush I have is the Houkodou B002, which doesn't flare out like the GP1. It's more rounded on the top. The Houkodou is also bundled kind of unevenly. B002 is on the right, and neither have been laid flat. They're very close in density, but I think the B002 is a tad denser and has a bit more resistance due to that. The Houkodou handle is a little bit longer as well. I think those of you who like small powder brushes and flat shapes would like both the GP1 and B002. The Houkodou GC-2 is a paddle-shaped blush brush with a pinched oval ferrule. It flares out at the top. The hair length is 45 millimeters. It is the thinnest and airiest out of all the brushes in this haul, but it is a blush brush while the rest are finishing and powder brushes. It has the least resistance as well, very low resistance on the back of the hand. It has medium resistance on the face. This is another brush with a versatile size for blush, bronzer, and powder. This is basically the gray Squirrel version of the Houkodou J110 but with longer hairs. The shapes are very similar, but the GC2 has a thinner body since gray Squirrel hairs are thinner than goat hairs. The size is also similar to the Koyudo BP018, red-handled gray Squirrel cheek brush, and Chikuhodo Z8. I also threw the Z4 on the left into the mix just so that you can see the size difference. The BP018 and red-handled gray Squirrel cheek brushes were not in brush guards, but they were laid flat, while the Z4 and Z8 were in brush guards. BP018 on the right. BP018 is a little bit less dense, but I think it's just the one that I got because they vary depending on the bundling. So the BP-18 and the red handle gray Squirrel cheek brush actually share the same head, but due to bundling discrepancies, my BP-18 is less dense than the red handle one. Here it is with the red handle gray Squirrel cheek brush, which is denser than my BP-18. Z8 on the right. Z8 has a thicker ferrule. Z4 on the right. Here's the GC2 on the left, BP-18 in the middle, and the red handle gray Squirrel cheek brush on the right. My red handle gray Squirrel cheek brush is a little bit denser than my BP-18, even though they share the same head. It's just due to bundling discrepancies. Although it has low resistance on the back of the hand, it's still thick enough to not bend into your cheek too much. It glides across the skin and builds up blush beautifully. The bundling could also be a little bit better. You might like it if you like the shape of the J110 and BP-18, or love the J110, but it will apply lighter than the J110 since it's made out of gray Squirrel hair. So in the time I didn't edit this video, I got another brush because I love the Sakura Makie so much. This is the RE25-1 with Sakura Makie. This is how it looks pre-wash, fresh out of the package. The ferrule width is the same as the P2. After I filmed this, CDJapan added another Peony P2 to their lineup, which looks exactly like the RE25-1. After inspecting the handle initially, I concluded that I actually got the RE25-1 instead of the P2. As if it weren't already confusing enough with the multiple brushes with pretty much the same and or similar designs, they added one more which made me question which one I really got. I ordered the P2, but I call it the RE25-1 here because it was the only one of their Sakura Makie brushes with the extra petal and line at the time of filming this video. I'll link the brushes in the description box. Here it is post-wash in comparison with the Peony P2. It's slightly less dense than my Peony P2. The P2 has been used while the RE25 has not been. The head shapes are basically the same and the hairs are wavy, especially on the RE25-1. Here's the P1 on the left and the RE25-1 on the right. I'll focus on the differences between the Makie next. I'm going to try to explain this as clearly as possible, but if it's confusing, just look at the differences between the designs in the video. The design may appear the same as the Sakura Makie on the P1 and P2. I don't have the Sakura Makie with the P2, I'm just showing you the Peony one in comparison, but it is slightly different. I'm not referring to the P2 with the Peony Makie on the right here, I'm referring to the P2 that CDJapan also sells with the same exact Makie as the P1 on the left right here. The P1 and P2 have the same design, it's just that the places they put the iridescence are different. The iridescence on the P1 and P2 design are squares and very reflective since they're larger and differently shaped compared to the iridescence on the RE25-1. The iridescent part on all the brushes have a rainbow effect, but it depends on how those parts are distributed. The P1 and P2 iridescent portions are larger, and due to that, they reflect more light. The iridescence areas on the RE25 are smaller and not squares, but lines and splotches depending on the one that you get. I was hoping to get one that looked like the stock photo design with splotches instead of lines, as it would give more of a rainbow effect, which I love. The Makie all slightly vary, specifically the sizes and where the areas of the iridescent parts are. Now for the other differences and how you'll be able to tell which one is the P1 and P2 design and which one is the RE25-1 design. I inspected the stock photos, other people's photos, my friend's video clip I had her send me, and my own handles for a long time and came across these findings, before CDJapan added a Peony P2. The focus on the RE25 is more on the color of the flowers and leaves rather than the iridescence. The color of the pink and green on the RE25 are a bit more vibrant than the subdued and pale color of the Makie on my P1. My RE25-1 has iridescent lines across some areas of the flowers, similar to the Peony P2 that I have. You can also see how much more reflective the Makie on the P1 on the left right here is compared to the RE25 on the right, in the middle. Even when I'm not moving it, you can see how reflective it is because of the larger square iridescent parts compared to the fingerprint or like tiger stripe parts on the RE25-1 in the middle. The lines remind me of tiger stripes. I'm not a huge fan of the tiger stripes as I much prefer the large squares of the P1 design. The more rainbow effect, the better. Other differences between the Sakura on the P1, P2, and RE25-1 are that the Sakura on the P1 and P2 do not have an extra petal on the top left section and line on the bottom left underneath the petal, while the RE25 does. Once again, CD Japan adding a Peony P2 with the additional petal to their lineup really makes things confusing. RE25-1 is on the right, and you can see right here, where I'm pointing my thumb at. Right there, there's an extra petal. The extra line I'm talking about is underneath this petal, right here. P1 design does not have that extra line. I like the additional petal, but don't care for the line. If you care more about the iridescence and color reflections like mother of pearl, then I would suggest getting the Sakura Makie on the P2, which is currently still available at the time of filming this. If you care more about the vibrancy of the pink and green and like the extra petal on the top left, then choose the RE25-1 Sakura Makie instead. There are still plenty in stock at the time of filming this. I took so long to edit this that I ordered even more Eihodo brushes in the meantime. These are sold out outlet brushes, so I won't go into detail, but I just wanted to show you them really quickly in case they add more outlet brushes in the future. They restocked some of these brushes after the first time I purchased them, and then they added more another time. CD Japan also had Eihodo outlet brushes over the past couple years. They're discounted because they may come with some defects on the ferrules and handles and or uneven bundling. The one defect that I found was on this number 10 brush. It has a little scratch right here, but other than that, I don't see anything wrong with it. The bundling could be better, but like I said before, these are outlet brushes, so there could be imperfect bundling, and you're getting a discount. I think out of all the ones that I have, the number 10 has the worst bundling, but even then, it's not that bad. Like, I've seen full price brushes bundled worse than this. I haven't noticed any terrible defects. I've also seen some scratches and marks on the ferrules here and there. Overall, I think the brushes are great value for the money. Some blush brushes are like 3,500 yen and powder brushes are around 5,000 to 7,000 yen. I mostly picked up gray Squirrel brushes. The gray Squirrel isn't the finest or softest like the Chikuhodo Z series, but I don't expect that kind of quality for these prices. They're soft enough and not coarse, nor are the hairs super thick. All the goat brushes I saw were either dyed or undyed Sokoho or a mix of Sokoho and gray Squirrel. I don't think their Sokoho is soft enough for sensitive skin. These are some of the brushes I picked up. Their names aren't the easiest to remember. I did label 3 of them, but then I got lazy and stopped labeling the rest after the first order. So you can see number 3, number 16, number 10 is on the left, and then of course I'm just going over this really quickly, so I don't remember the names for the other ones. They tend to sell out fairly quickly. I do recommend the gray Squirrel brushes in particular if you're able to get your hands on them. I was really tempted to get some during the last round that they came out with, which was the 3rd round. It included some weasel brushes and a lot of eyeshadow brushes, but I passed in the end. There were some good deals, like a Chikuhodo Z11 dupe for around 2,200 yen. In closing, if you like big round brushes, then the P1 would be a nice brush to try. If you like flat brushes, then the P2, GC2, and GP1 might suit your preferences. If you are a collector and enthusiast and love Makie, I personally think the short handle Sakura Makie and P2 Peony Makie are the prettiest of the bunch. If you can't choose between the Makie, you might end up with all of them just like me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.